Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Common Nonsense with Kevin. This is episode number 3 coming at you. And today I am going to be joined by a very special guest, one of my best friends in the world, and the man who helped me actually start the original Common Nonsense, Mr. Koby Peters. So today we are going to be talking about whatever comes up. It's going to be wild because Koby is one of the probably most interesting thinkers I know, and he has one of the best stories I know, and he's just a wonderfully entertaining human being. So today's going to be a great episode. Before we get started, don't forget to go to awakenotwoke.shopify.com to find your good, awesome Be the Change gear. Go check me and my buddy Bucky out over at the Liberty Revolt at libertyrevoltmedia.com. And finally, stay strong. We're in this fight together, and let's have a great day. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Koby Peters. Koby, hello and welcome. How are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing all right. How are you, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, let's get this started. So, why the heck do I know you?
You kind of fanboyed me, man.
I did, man.
We're at a Turning Point of TPUSA event down in Florida, and you'd heard so much about me, the black kid with dreads that was more radical than everybody else there on campus.
Dude. Yeah, Isabel Brown did a wonderful job making sure that you were super hyped up. She's all, Kevin, you got to meet Koby. Kevin, you got to meet Koby.
You sound just like her.
And so I got to meet Koby at the Student Action Summit of 2018. And what were you holding in your hand the day I met you, bud? It was a big old book.
A Thomas Jefferson book.
Yeah,
that's right.
Your boy Thomas.
I forgot about that. Yeah, it's down on my grandma's. I still read it.
You still okay? So you're still a Thomas Jefferson guy. I've been kind of worried that you've been, maybe moving away from the Jefferson.
Nah, Thomas Jefferson's still the best president we've ever had, and it's not even close.
Yeah, no, I would not agree, because that dude immediately went into cutting off free speech and helped empower the banks and stuff like that. So, I mean, the Alien and Sedition Act, was that not Thomas Jefferson?
That's a great act. Also, the Louisiana Purchase, slap that on the table. That's the best thing ever. Yeah, he might have raised taxes, even though he didn't want to raise taxes on anybody. But for all in all, he had agency, and that's what mattered. He had the most agency out of any president there was. He could see far into the future and said, you know what? This is going to be important one day. And we wouldn't have Oklahoma or Colorado without the Louisiana Purchase.
So the Louisiana Purchase then was the worst thing. I mean, it gave us Oklahoma. I would trade all of the rest of the states to get rid of Oklahoma. So
you know what? I've been really trying to be realistic on where I rate Oklahoma in the top 50, 5.
Number
it's
5?
Literally the 5th best state in the nation.
Wait, what are the top 4 then?
It'd be Florida and Texas. I don't know who's number 1 out of that one. Alaska, West Virginia, and then us.
West Virginia is great for the opium. I love West Virginia.
They brought us a lot of moonshine and a lot of American heritage.
Dude, West Virginia is a beautiful state, but it's getting destroyed by opiate addiction right now, man.
I know.
Utah's pretty hyped there.
I'm not gonna 10 years out of 200. I'm not going to dock them on that. They've had a lot of rich history. That's why I rate them. That's why I'm rating them so high.
No, I'm not saying that means that they're not a great state. I'm saying it's pretty tragic what's currently going on in West Virginia. The Appalachians, man, are some of the most beautiful territory in the country, and it's what's happening to West Virginia is an absolute travesty, and it's not really a surprise. But I want to ask another question though, and I talked to Suni a little bit about this. So, how the heck are you black and conservative? What? Like,
The real question is, how am I black?
I mean, the way people responded to you wearing blackface to school, it would make me think that
Yeah,
you weren't. But you
yeah,
know, you are a black conservative, actually more conservative than myself by a lot.
yeah, yeah.
Has that like
Well,
manifested in any kind of like negative reactions from people and anything like that?
yeah, I'll start from the beginning first.
Yeah.
I'm biracial, so that's how I'm black. And then the how I'm conservative part, I've always, as a young kid, before I could even explain anything, my brain was just set up that way. I always believed you had to work for something, and
Hmm.
I'll never forget in pre-K, my first example of a communistic way of thinking. I had a game that I was playing, and what it was a little man with a magnet on the bottom, and you had the magnet below the board, and you took them through a maze.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
the pre-K game, and I was
I
playing
remember.
it, and this kid wanted to play it as well, and I said, "You can wait your turn." I was here first. I beat him by a long shot,
Yeah.
and the teacher came over and told me that I need to stop playing and allow other kids to play, and I was pissed off. I told my mom, I was like, "I don't see how this is fair if I got there first." And then in second grade, I brought my friends something, a candy or something like that I brought from my house, and I was told by the second grade teacher that if I'm going to bring anything, I have to bring enough for everyone. And
I got told that too.
exactly, and it's a common thing back then, and I'm sure it's even more common now. You don't bring anything to school unless you have enough for everyone, and I never understood that. I told my mom, I said, "These people are my friends, and these people are not near as close of friends. Why do I have to bring them something?" So, it's
Yeah.
just examples. That's how I thought way back when, and it just moved into
You,
politics now.
you don't want to hurt feelings, Kobe. Okay. If you bring food and I can't have some of your food, my feelings are gonna get hurt, which means that I'm allowed to hurt you.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Dude, no, but
So
that's how kids learn to really hate the idea of communism if you let them.
mhm.
But it comes down to as well, I think that, you were in a public school, which
Yes.
of course. So like when you were going through school though, did you ever find yourself having to really fight to be able to hold the beliefs you have?
Yeah, so this is a great story. I'm sure you've heard this once before, but our listeners definitely have not. I was sophomore year, and my teacher, Mr. Thompson, is US social studies or history or something. And he was talking about, he liked to go off. He was your classic boomer Republican.
Yeah.
I don't know how he felt about Trump. I haven't, been in contact with him, but he was one of the mindsets, straight FUD. Uh, do you really need 30 rounds in a magazine? I love to hunt, blah, 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 blah. All you need is a good shotgun and a hunting rifle. Like that was his like limit to the Second Amendment
Yeah.
was,
Oh,
and he was okay with Obama's assault weapon ban there after Sandy Hook.
yeah.
So let's see. He was talking about immigration, and he was saying that racists don't exist anymore. Essentially, like people who are racist. And I was like, look, I wouldn't call it racist, but I have negative views on illegals. Now, it doesn't matter what race they're actually from. If they're illegal, I consider them, uh, as a harm to America.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
he was not expecting that.
I feel like he was probably like, you know what, that's a really sound, rational opinion for you to have. I really appreciate your tolerance.
He just kind of cut me off, and then went on. But a student in that class posted it on Facebook, and there was probably like 15 comments of these Mexicans saying we're gonna let's shoot him and stick a Mexican flag in his ass and shoot him when he's dead. And where's this kid? I'm gonna find him. All this stuff. And so principal obviously got involved, and I was allowed to go to the bathroom during class period. Any class period I could leave, but I couldn't when I was going. I had to leave late after classes I was leaving and or leave early from the class I was leaving,
Jesus,
so
dude.
that I wasn't in the hallway with all the other kids for like a month.
Jesus Christ, man.
They were worried I was going to get stabbed in the bathroom.
Jesus, man. That sounds like a wonderful place to grow up. Now that was in Tulsa area?
Yeah, Tulsa Union is the school.
Jesus,
and it's not that
man.
bad of a school,
No.
but we have like probably half the kids are from like middle class to upper middle class suburbia, all the way to the hood. Like, so that's
kind of where that's
mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I had too. It's like you had the upper middle class, and then like part of my town was like down near Azusa, West Covina area that that was not as nice, and so like you kind of had a mix as well. I almost got expelled, and I did get expelled in 7th grade because someone told me that they were gonna like beat me up, so I brought a knife to defend myself. And when he met me in the bathroom, I pulled it on him and walked out. I didn't stab him or anything. I pulled it on him, and it was just like, let me go, like let me get out of here. So I got expelled. Ended up being a lawsuit. We ended up winning. School got really fucked. But long story short is like, I was in a upper middle class area, and I still upper middle class, and I dealt with that stuff. Like, it's hilarious how stupid kids are in school, man.
So that all happened, and that's about the end of the story. But
yeah,
it was interesting because the principals didn't like me because I always messed with them. Like, we had this extra flamboyant gay kid who wore like shorts maybe this tall, like this
like
long.
Terry from Reno 911.
Yes, like ass cheeks almost hanging out, and he wore these like
sure
silver ones these one day, like they were like vinyl silver and fishnet. But the principals would get on the other black kids for wearing hats and sagging and stuff. And I literally walked up to one. I said, "You're going to get mad at him, but not the faggot who's wearing these short shorts."
Yeah, dude.
And I said that word for word, but he knew he couldn't get me on any of it. I was protected because he knew I was right. And so it's not like he was going to come down on me using the word faggot or anything like that, because I was totally in the right, and he just told me to leave. And then our state superintendent was at the school, and she's running for governor next year. She's awful. She was Republican, and now she just changed her name, and she's on the Democratic ticket. But
of course she is.
Yeah, she's whack. Joy Hoffmeister. Please do not vote for Joy Hoffmeister. She came to the school after she got elected state superintendent, and I literally yelled at her from across our brand new like entrance, and the security was like, "You got to get out of here."
Dude, you've always been like one of the ones to really take very strong stances. So I know the story very well, but the audience doesn't really know the story of Halloween 2019.
It's the best year ever.
The greatest Halloween of all time.
It was so good. It was just because of the reaction that made it so good. So, are you wanting me to tell the story?
I mean, we're gonna tell this story. So for those of you, our audience is very familiar with Mr. Justin Trudeau. They are not very big fans of him. Well, our school, Colorado State, it's the pride of the Rockies, proud to be, #proud to be. Well, our school underwent a little bit of a racial incident wherein some people made a Snapchat post with charcoal face
white people.
Yeah, some white people. It must be pointed out that it was white. Now I know the people that were involved in this, and honestly, like at least one of them, very good person. But they were doing charcoal face masks, and they put up the Wakanda Forever, and
which was the dumbest part. They were asking him to get hurt on that one.
Yeah, dude, and it's just like, but it was the reaction to it was just so stupid. We had a freaking Maoist struggle session, bruh. You remember that shit? We had
Yep.
a Maoist struggle session for 4 hours.
Oh my goodness, it was miserable.
Dude.
It was
Like,
miserable. It went to 2 a.m. or something like that.
like it was
It went forever long.
I think it went to 2 it was like it went after midnight.
Yeah, it
And
was for
like
definitely after midnight.
I was with someone who was there for reasons, and I was just like, can this just freaking end? I want to go home. I want to go home. But nope. Midnight rolls around. You had people who were undocumented people complaining about how evil and racist America was, and so this gave you an idea, didn't it?
That's right. She was straight undocumented. That one girl, I forgot about that.
She
Okay,
was
so I had at this literal uh I don't even know, just oppression Olympic meeting. Who's the most oppressed? I opened up literally a speech and it was great. And one thing I was actually going to open with was uh was Thomas Jefferson, I swear upon the altar of God, eternal hostility towards the tyranny of any kind over the mind of man. And I was literally going to open it up with that and then go into this deep rant about how stupid.
yeah, but
All
I
right, we
mean,
had a question from the chat.
yeah, that was Rousseau. Uh, Maoist, there, buddy. Come on, and what it is where
MAOS or
yeah, Maoist.
MAOIST.
Maoist, aka where a bunch of people get in a circle and start confessing their sins and talking about how wonderful the party is and how terrible the not party is, and you have to listen to it for hours and hours and hours, and if you don't, you
Awful.
get killed. Um, but yeah, so after that though, Halloween rolled around, and
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay, so it's October 30th is our student council meeting. I was in the student council and we were told we could dress in costume. And I was trying to think of, what's obviously I gotta do something. I can't just not do anything.
yeah,
And so I'm thinking of ways to piss everybody off, and I'm on the phone with my parents, and my mom said, "Wouldn't it be funny if you went in blackface?" And I said, "Yes, it definitely would." And she said, "Well, if it's good for Justin Trudeau." And I said, "That's it. I'll be Justin Trudeau." And my dad started laughing so hard in the background. I could hear him. I was like, "That's it. That's what I'm doing. I'm gonna be Justin Trudeau."
I'm
So
sure Carl was just like he was just like that's perfect.
And so I went and printed little Canadian flags and put them on a stick. I went to Party City and got the skeleton face paint, but I was going for the black. So I didn't want to go brown. I wanted to go pitch black.
Dude. Yes. It was very
So I dressed up in my suit and skinny jeans and everything like that. And I had the Canadian flags and I printed out a little name tag that said Justin Trudeau, Ottawa, Canada, and I put it on the
dude.
coat and everything.
And I still have the picture of you just standing there twirling these flags. How did they react when you walked in the door? I'm sure that they understood the joke of the black man wearing blackface. I'm sure they have totally understood the joke, and they were like, you know what, we get it, we're with you.
So the best part is the libtard with Tourette's. He thought it was funny at first.
Yeah.
And then someone told him that it was messed up. And then he was like the one of the biggest people that was offended by it. And I was like, "You're a white kid, sit down."
I always thought the rule was that if your skin was black when the paint went on, it doesn't count. But apparently the white college educated liberal is the smartest human being on the planet, and they told me that was offensive.
It
So
was the black girls in there. It's the black divas. Because she accused me of colorism.
what is that? What does that mean?
Light skinned people are racist towards dark skinned people.
Oh my god.
Colorism. I'd never heard that in my life. And everybody on Twitter was like, "So he's not black enough." And she's like, "You obviously don't get the point." And I'm not even saying that. And then everyone was like, "You literally just said that though."
Yeah, that's you're so he's not black enough. Got it. That sounds pretty racist to me.
Yeah, I wasn't black enough. You can see my dreads hanging out of the wig. I had a wig on and everything.
Dude, it's pretty
Somebody
cool.
tried to dox me and said his name's Quentin. Quentin, who gets that name?
How white did they think you are?
I don't know. I don't even know Quentin.
I've only met like 2 in my entire life. Like that is
pasty.
So, dude, it was just I miss having you up here, man. There were some shenanigans going down.
Oh, I threw it down, man. I threw it down.
But like what was also awesome about it is that they didn't really understand the point you were trying to make, because I'm sure a lot of them have no idea how, you know, offensively racist Justin Trudeau is, and how obvious the reason why I say the white college educated liberal is because they are who is going to acquiesce to the pressure of a person of color when they say, no, you're supposed to be offended by this. Okay, yeah, sure, I'm offended. Your experience tells me the truth that I need to know. So do you like when you do stuff like that, it makes it very obvious how there's such as Shelby Steele puts it, white guilt is black supremacy.
Yeah, so I have an example from that particular one. The sponsor, the lady who was a grad student who her college years were her shining light, so she never left.
Yeah.
30, not married, no kids, like obviously miserable life. She came and asked me, she said, do you understand, how'd she put it? Do you know the significance of blackface in Black history? Like, do you know what it means to black people? And I looked at her like she was the stupidest person on earth. I said, yeah, I think I know the history of blackface. And she said, well, did you talk to anybody about this before doing it? And I said, yeah, I talked to my parents. And they were like, what did they say? And I said, my dad thought it was hilarious, and he's black. Like black.
Which is, there's an interesting story behind how your family got to Oklahoma, because I do want to discuss this, because
which side or both?
I mean,
both are pretty interesting.
I mean, they both most likely are, but there's one that carries a truth to it that a lot of people on the left that hold the noble savage as the idea. So Columbus Day was what, earlier this week? It was this Monday. Wasn't it? Yeah. Monday, yeah. And first and foremost, that Columbus Day, the story of Christopher Columbus and his current understanding in America is a really great example for how the CRT mindset, that intersectionalist, white apologist mindset, can completely bastardize someone's story and remove the truth from it and turn it into something that it's not, right? And then the whole perception of Native Americans in America has gotten to a point where they are and can only be victims as of now, because of the way that the left perceives them. We're encouraged to give them their land back kind of idea, without the true understanding of Native American culture upon our arrival. So the way they treat the Native Americans and what we did to the Native Americans is not as an equal people conquering an equal people, right? It's not as if the Americans that were moving westward were not equal people to the Native Americans. It is seen as we came in, we annihilated these weak infantile people and took their land unjustly and all this other stuff. And the story of Christopher Columbus is also a really good tie-in, because he was just a monster. He either was a monster who brought genocide, or he was super insignificant, and what he did doesn't really matter, so why do we celebrate him? Right?
Yeah.
So the problem with the Christopher Columbus story is, if you cannot appreciate the amount of bravery and courage it takes to decide to, in 1492, get on a boat and sail for times an amount of time you have no freaking idea how long it's going to be. You have no way to navigate. You're just going to sail one direction.
And everyone said you're crazy because the Earth falls off the edge and you are getting.
Yeah, the flat Earth was not broadly held at all. They thought he was going to run into East India. They thought that
he was going to run into East India. Half of
flat
them
Earth,
thought he was going to fall off.
Well, some people did, but the flat Earth was at that point had been so far debunked. We've known the Earth isn't flat since about the 7th century BC. I think it was 7th or 2nd.
The Earth is dome shaped. Okay, it's not flat.
It's a condom, actually. But anyway, so there is a significant amount of courage that takes to get, not just from him, but every person on that boat. Because at the time, going on the voyage, you were going to be malnourished. You were probably going to get some disease. Probably half of the ship was going to die. Ships, there was 3 of them. Half of them were going to die. You were going to run into storms. It was insanely unsafe. And there was a lot of legitimate courage and bravery that went into making that voyage. And upon his arrival, he was greeted by an equal people. And if you read his documents, he thought of them as like there was a lot of equality there, but these stories get tarnished and everything. So you look at the Native Americans too, and I'm droning a little bit, but like it's something that I've been trying to get off my chest.
Yeah, but they didn't have wheels, dude. They did not have wheels.
They didn't have wheels at that point, and that doesn't mean that they
the
were
Romans
not.
Did like 100 years, hundreds of years, 1700 years before that.
No, so does not mean that they were not equal people. They were not still the same race of people, were they not?
Yeah, you're right. But they were asking to get conquered.
That may be, maybe they've, that may be, and I'm sure there's plenty of civilizations that have been asking to get conquered that have been conquered. Hence why the names of the empires or the names of the countries currently on Earth are significantly different than they were 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, and 3,000 years ago, because these things change over time. But the Native Americans, though, were an equal people. When we landed and started to colonize the West or the East Coast, we were running into confederations. You had the Iroquois, or not the Iroquois, but like the Iroquois nations, right? Yeah. You had confederacies of countries. You had legitimate democracies, not democracies. You had legitimate governments around the area. There was economies, there was trade, there was all this kind of stuff going on. We ran into a less technologically advanced people than us, but still a people exactly like the Europeans. They had the same kind of combat going on. They had the same kind of deceptions and hierarchies and everything that Europe had on the personal level. They had over, Native Americans had too. It's like it's not an idea of we were somehow up here and they were down here. No, we were right here. You know what they didn't have? Domesticated animals. So you know what happened? 90% of them were killed by diseases that the Europeans had become accustomed to. And that was the great problem of the European travels. It wasn't genocide or anything like that. It was just the fact that we introduced them to disease, and that sucks because they had no way to handle it. But one thing they did have was slaves.
Yep. So yeah, well, only the 5 civilized tribes had slaves.
Yes, because they were civilized, so they had slaves.
Yep. So my family were originally owned by the Chickasaw, and then after the Emancipation Proclamation and stuff, they became freedmen. But they weren't allowed to leave or anything like that.
It sounds very free.
And my family ancestors walked the Trail of Tears with them, and that's how they're in Oklahoma.
Yeah, but it's very interesting because I thought there was like an oppression hierarchy and like your value. Yeah, because like I know they're trying to say that straight black males do not win that competition anymore, but I know they do. Yeah, no, I know they say straight black males no longer, come down in that hierarchy, but like when you point out that they were also owned by slaves to the Native Americans, it's like it's almost like no one's hands are free of blood when it comes to slavery.
Nope.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's if you actually look at the history of nations themselves, the average time it takes for them to outlaw slavery is a lot longer than it took for us to. So
Yeah.
England goes, we got rid of it first. Well, yeah, you motherfuckers, you were one of the first civilizations to really stick out in the Middle Ages. So yeah,
Uh,
maybe get over. But then they also had like indentured servitude, which is
mhm.
slavery, just with a prettier, fancier name.
Yeah,
But
pretty much.
it comes down to the hypocrisy or the misunderstanding. I feel like what happens a lot with, especially when you're talking college students, is that a lot of people don't want to critically think about the bad things. They don't want to have to confront the bad things. So it's a much easier to accept a history where they just assume everything is bad, so they never actually really have to think about
They consider that critical thinking.
it. But it's not.
I
It's
know.
not though. It's not though. They consider that because subconsciously, I think personally that it allows them to remove having to actually consider how horrible it was. Because in order to actually consider how horrible it was, you have to legitimately consider the pain someone in that position might have gone through.
Hmm.
And you have to think critically on it. But what would happen if they tried that is they would realize very quickly that the suffering that they say only people of color in our country go through is actually suffered by everyone all over the world. I think every student, I don't know why the Gulag Archipelago, at least the abridged version, isn't taught somewhat. Like, just you can just take chapters from like small parts from each chapter and read that kind of stuff. But it's they want to eliminate they wanted to eliminate suffering to the point, to the extent that they are willing to almost they're willing to believe the fallacy that suffering can be eliminated. And do you think that fact? Do you think I'm wildly incorrect on what I'm saying?
Uh, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. It
Yeah,
was a little dry. I zoned out for the last 5 minutes. But that's all right. No,
I might have consumed a little bit too much of something right there.
um, yeah, equal people. Yeah, it's just dumb. I don't libtards with their critical race thinking, thinking that they're thinking critical, but they're not.
Mm-mm.
And you saying you have to put your shoe, like you have to actually think about the suffering that they did. I don't know. Empathy is a dangerous way of trying to find out someone's problems, because you can't actually feel what they feel, and I think that's a oh man, I don't I don't quite have the words for it. I avoid empathy, let's put it that way.
Shouldn't avoid it.
Yeah, I tend to avoid empathy. I think that causes um illogical ways of thinking. Let's put it that way.
Empathy is what made me hyper logical. Being able to actually understand people's emotions and being able to work through it. If you can't understand where someone's coming from, you can't actually truly, consider a way to handle the situation. Um, but guns. I love guns.
I do
You love
too.
guns. So what I was going to ask you is, do you think that the Second Amendment is being upheld currently in our country?
No, it's been awful. It's been awful. Look, the Second Amendment's so plain and simple, and I don't understand why people can't wrap their heads around it.
You don't.
No,
It's
that's because I don't have empathy.
Yeah, no, there you go. No, but it's also because at the
But
end
I
of the
don't
day,
care. I don't care.
yeah,
See, I don't want to feel the way they feel because they think so illogically, and that's wrong. I just look to the Second Amendment, look at what's written, and follow that.
shall not be infringed, Koby does not actually exist. It's a very hard phrase to understand because what you got to do is you got to realize that shall not be infringed apparently that meant something completely different in their time, where shall not meant, I guess you can sometimes.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like,
To have a license for something that's guaranteed,
by the
it's
Constitution,
mind-boggling.
it's like people try to
It's not
say
guaranteed by the Constitution.
it's guaranteed by your existence
Yeah,
and just acknowledged in the Constitution.
and protected. That's all the Constitution does. Is it's supposed to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do
That's
you
all
think
it's supposed to do. But it has failed miserably.
it has failed miserably? And that's actually the question that I asked on the radio on Wednesday: is do you think America is the American Union as it stands now is worth salvaging? Or do you think a separation, not necessarily a divorce, but like a separation, might be amenable?
Oh, it's not even close. Divorce. That's what I want. I want a complete divorce. I don't want a weak separation. I want a divorce.
Hmm.
Return back to like the Articles of Confederation. Divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big AOC fan.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, that's why I say, AOC is gorgeous. AOC is
I like
beautiful.
her big bug eyes. When they almost pop out of her head when she's thinking real hard.
Yeah, dude, I like that little vein she gets when she's getting real impassioned about stuff she has no idea anything about.
Tracy said, but you have empathy and think logically. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I just think avoiding empathy is not a bad thing, and that's what I tend to stay with, because sticking yourselves in the shoes of someone who is illogical can have underlying. If you're not able to control it, that's what makes you left. Like if you're not able to control and separate your own personal emotions with someone else's when you're trying to be empathetic, that leads into more problems. That's why I don't recommend it for people. Who cares what they feel like?
Everybody has an emotional reaction.
Yeah, but it can muddy the waters in a sense.
No, it can.
If you're focusing so much on how they're feeling,
yeah,
that it makes it too hard to think of a path of an answer. It makes it too hard to find an answer. I feel like the truth. If you just say the truth, everyone says facts don't care about your feelings. That was a stupid saying, but it is correct.
You love Ben Shapiro. Be quiet.
Yeah.
No, so Jonathan Haidt actually has the way he describes it, the metaphor and analogy he uses is really the elephant and the rider. The elephant is your emotional response, the initial emotional instinctual response you have to something. That is always going to take off. That's always going to be your first initial response. And it's up to the rider or your logical side to be able to control the elephant. Now, if you don't train the rider, if the rider doesn't really get a lot of experience in trying to actually control the elephant, your emotions are always going to overpower your logic, but you have to practice logic. We are all instinctually emotional people. But for some, the rider is a lot more powerful than others. And therefore, we're not only able to what makes you good logically is if you are able to understand the emotions to such an extent that you can overcome them. And so when I'm an empathetic person, I'm not talking about I'm seeing it, necessarily from their perspective. I'm trying to understand the pain that they must go through or must have gone through to come to the conclusion that they're at now. And despite having, and it's still like, hey, yes, I acknowledge your pain, but I can't just give in to what you want because you went through something brutal. And that's why the logic you have to practice. That's why you have to practice the logical side, or it's never going to work because we're all inherently emotional. So it's the elephant and the rider kind of.
Yeah, that is a good analogy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Still, it's in my opinion it's technically impossible to
No,
feel what others feel, but
no, you're right. Unless
I'm
you've
not going to
experienced it
waste my
yourself.
time. Yeah, exactly.
So like,
Um,
I've been through quite a couple things, so I can speak on a couple things like that, but I haven't been through everything. So that's
yeah.
why sympathy and empathy are two different things.
No, I
Um,
know.
yeah. So, but it also, the problem is that you have people that abuse it and they take advantage of it, and
Oh boy.
yeah,
Yeah, the left
yeah,
is okay. First, jump back to divorce.
yes.
All right.
Let's get back to
So
this.
how do you feel about the separation? Because you have changed over the course of the last couple of years,
I
especially with
mean,
my bad influence.
no, so I mean, I thought it was impossible, but I try to constantly actually correct myself. I try, like I say, I try to get control of that elephant, right? The
Mm,
elephant was taking me in one direction, and at the time, the evidence that I was seriously considering did not. I thought it was like, it's still a really off chance, but when you start thinking of it, when you actually look at the situation and you try to be objective about it and you try to remove your bias, it's like, me. I still have not changed my opinion on the fact that I do not want violence in the slightest. I want to figure out how we can solve the current cultural toxicity in a non-violent way, because
mhm.
I just keep growing more and more convinced that what you're predicting is gonna come true.
It's
I
the
haven't
worst.
changed my
It's the worst feeling ever, is it not?
Yeah, dude. No, it's terrible because like but the thing is that I still have hope, right? I have hope that God is, I'm going to get a little preachy here for a moment, but I have hope that God is still providing us the tools to prevent the violent separation, but we need men strong enough. We need leaders, not just men, but leaders right now, because I don't know if we have enough strong men. We need leaders in general because our current generation has been weakened to such an extent that we no longer have that source of leadership to guide us forward. And that's really what's convinced me of how inevitable the divorce is going to be.
That's exactly right. And unfortunately, history has taught us one thing, and there's pretty much one thing that truly makes strong men.
And that's bad times.
Yeah, that's
I,
bad times,
I literally was saying that yesterday on the radio too.
violence, and bad times.
It's unfortunate. You can't. So as for people that are unaware, the cycle is good. Strong men bring good times. Times breed weak men. Weak men breed bad times. We're in that weak men leading into bad times phase. The crappy
and
part is
and
that,
bad times to create strong men.
yeah, the weak men do not create strong men. You must experience the bad time first, unfortunately. And it's
Mhm.
not just men, it's just weak leaders in general. And you and our opinions kind of differ on this one, but I think leadership can come from everywhere. But whereas it can come from women, it should come from men. And that, I mean, that men should be seeking to be leaders, but women can be leaders if they want to. But it's not necessarily like should be the prime directive, the prime goal, if you will.
Mhm.
And you and I differ a little bit on that one, but
Just slightly.
just slightly. But right now, I think that we just have such a shortage of strong leaders that we just need people that can lead. Because I'm sorry, like, no matter what your personal opinion is, Kristi Noem has done a great job of doing something that the same thing Ron DeSantis has done, and the same thing Greg Abbott has done, and the things that Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo and all those governors couldn't do, right? She
Mhm.
has stood strong, and she's actually been an incredibly strong voice
Yeah.
throughout all of this. And so um, the thing is that we we just haven't experienced the time that's going to breed these strong leaders yet, and that's the unfortunate part.
No, you're right. I don't know. I I still think you know how I feel. Women, if you have a woman as a leader, she's gonna lead you to hell in a handbasket.
What book am I trying to point to here?
Rules for Radicals.
Oh yeah,
That's a great book. Did you finally finish it?
yeah, dude, I finished it like 3 times.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I got it on audiobook
Opinion
too, so I was listening.
opinions on it.
Dude, I tell literally everyone that will listen that if you want to know what the hell is going on right now, if you want to know why your cities are being taken over, and you don't read Rules for Radicals, I don't know what to tell you. Like they literally give you their
so
playbook.
great. It's their whole playbook.
This is their playbook right here. This in the blueprint. This is the grassroots playbook. The blueprint is the political machine playbook. And they gave us both of them.
I know.
I
know, and they gave us the UN white papers.
Dude, it's like they give us their plans. They don't hide any of this stuff because they know people aren't going to go out and read it. So they're not worried about it.
They like to brag about it. That's what I think it is.
They like to hide it in plain sight.
Yeah, I just think they like to brag about it.
Yeah.
You know, if you go ahead and publish your plan, then you can't have it leaked. And if you have it leaked, then it's more, it's more big news and actually catches people's eyes.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think an aspect of it is like these elites that are putting this stuff out or that are using this kind of stuff. Saul Alinsky wasn't really an elite, but he was an elite in the end. When Barack Obama is writing his thesis on you, I'm pretty sure you've reached elite status at that point. Hillary Clinton too as well. It's
Hillary
weird.
Worked with her. He worked with Hillary.
Yeah, so it's it's a situation where I think that these elites laugh at how easy it is to dupe the average person because they're like, they're not going to read this. They're not going to see this and be like, actually, wait a second. This is kind of terrifying how effective this is. Maybe this is why we keep losing our cities. They're not going to, they know and they laugh about it at their cocktail parties. They're like, oh, these poor, proletariats can't even read a simple book, right? But you know that
they sounded like that. It'd be funny,
dude. But you know that they laugh about it because it's like the conservatives are over here. The conservatives are over here like wondering why we keep dominating them in politics, and we gave them the books. Why they're too dumb to read them, and the fact that people are. Yeah, apparently it's like. But I don't think we are. I think that it just hasn't been put out there because there's been no real leadership on the Republican side of the aisle for decades.
I can't tell you how many times, when I was growing up and was a classic conservative listening to Rush, Michael Savage, and Mark Levin. I can't tell you how many times they told me to read Rules for Radicals.
Yeah, but the people listening, rather than actually reading it, just took it as gospel.
I guess I don't know how you can take gospel and not read it.
You bring up a great point. Why do you think we're losing God in our country?
A lot of things.
Yeah, it's a deliberate push, but they did say read Rules for Radicals quite often. Mark Levin, I've actually heard him say it. It's like, then why don't people read it? Why? Like, I just don't understand why. Because it was out there. That you are correct in that the talk radio shows. I think I've heard Larry Elder mention it. I've heard Shelby Steele mention it. I've heard Thomas Sowell for sure has mentioned it. 100%. Like, yet people still wonder. They're like, I don't get it. It's not a long book, and it's
really short.
Yeah, and it'll equip you. Yeah, dude, it's a great freaking book, man.
It's a great read.
It's a great book. And it gives you the literal blueprint of how to take over your local political scene at the grassroots level. And it's like that book right there is one of the greatest assets we have. And so few people actually take the time. It's because their teachers never tell them to read it because their teachers don't want them to read it.
Oh, Glenn Beck did as well. Yeah. See, that's everyone's talked about it, and when you're reading it, if you replace status quo with conservative, it makes you just can see it left and right. You're like, oh, that's exactly what happened that one time, and it also brings back the stuff that you've forgotten about, which is another issue that we have right now with social media. It's made everyone's memory so short term that in a normal conversation, when you're talking about how bad everything is, people will forget to bring up Benghazi. People will forget to bring up saying, I wiped it clean. I wiped my server with a cloth. stuff like that. People have forgotten all about that. The military sequester during Obama. People forget the shovel-ready job thing.
I
Oh, and the
was working in the military when that happened.
cash for clunkers. Everyone
Oh
forgets
yeah,
about that. Yeah, everyone's like, "Why aren't there any used cars right now?"
cash
Ca
for clunkers, man.
Cash for clunkers. Yeah,
They got rid of
and
all of them.
everyone forgot about that. Chevy had the big, uh, all the bailouts for GM,
Yeah.
and one of the big things GM had going on was their brakes were failing
Oh yeah.
mid-drive of their brand new cars, like their 2007s and, 2010 vehicles. All their brakes were failing. They had massive recalls,
Oh yeah.
like hundreds of
The
thousands of
Chevy
cars.
Cruze.
Yeah, and the Volt. Then the
Yeah, the
Volt
Volt
then they came out with the Volt because, Obama gave GM a
subsidy.
huge subsidy to compete with the Prius.
Yeah,
And
a
how many
humongous
Priuses
subsidy.
do you see versus how many Volts do you see today?
Also, like the Prius is more assembled here in America than the Volt is. Like
Uh-huh.
Toyota's our Olympic partner, and it's like if that's not the most truly American thing ever, having a Japanese company who builds most of the cars they sell in America are built in America, sponsoring our Olympic team. I'm like, that is America right there. Why? You want to know why? Because Chevy doesn't assemble jack shit in this freaking country
Mhm,
anymore.
mhm.
Like,
And I think another thing, Janine says she'll never forget
yeah, you can't,
Benghazi. That's good. You should never forget Benghazi. Um,
dude. There's
the ethanol in our fuel, that's when that started too, was under Obama. And that's
yeah.
been a huge problem. We're literally taking up farmland uh, to grow something that we don't even eat.
Yeah, you actually work in the agricultural industry and you work in the oil industry
And
as
the
well.
energy industry. That's right.
So what kind of effects have you been seeing there from these kinds of policies and everything?
Ethanol hurt gas prices, and then gas prices directly affect crude oil prices, and it brought all that down. But then Obama was the first one to slow down uh, the consumption of U.S. oil and gas, and the whole reasoning behind it, which nowadays is like conservative, is
Hmm.
like classic conservative, is let's use their oil till it runs out, so then we're the only ones that have it. And I'm like, do you guys understand how much they have and how much we have? And like,
Yeah,
people
it's
don't have the numbers in their head correctly. Like, um, Oklahoma's natural gas, just natural gas. Um, this is excluding the oil, has enough natural gas to run the whole country for like 35 years. And that's one state. We're not that big, and that's just natural gas.
isn't North Dakota like huge on natural gas as well, and like that
Uh-huh.
that part of the country is even more.
So actually, your best natural gas is actually coming out of the Permian, which is in West Texas.
Okay. Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah. West Texas has a
so if,
ton.
if you remember that there are tar pits in Canada,
Yeah.
that's where your thick oil is up north.
Hmm.
So North Dakota and Canada, they have the real thick oil that has to be processed a lot, but you can get a whole bunch from it. Versus West Texas has condensate.
Okay. By the way, do you know? I think there was a movie series about this.
Oh yeah, good old Too Fast, Too Furious, or
Yes,
it's
Three
just a
Fast, Three
fast.
Furious.
Yeah, it's just Fast and Furious, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the Fast and Furious scandal where they sold guns to the cartels that were then smuggled into Mexico and brought back into America and used by cartel members to kill Americans.
Yeah, one of them said, "I have a great idea. I have a great idea. What we'll do is we'll take guns, we'll scratch the serial numbers off, and we'll see if we can track them."
Oh, yeah. Hey, but remember, Obama's biggest scandal was wearing an ugly bike helmet while he was out biking, or a tan
Mhm,
suit.
mhm. But see, Eric Holder done messed up too, because not only that one, which was bad enough, but Ferguson.
Yes.
He was
Ooh.
the one that went down there and started all that.
Oh yeah. No, but no, no, no. There was no scandals at all. Obama's administration was perfect. It
Perfectly
was
clean.
flawless. There was nothing wrong with it at all. But yeah, no, the fast this so I don't know if you're aware, but do you know, first and foremost, I want to get into your little bit of your foreign policy stance, because like
Mm-hmm.
you are conservative, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not a neocon.
No.
And norm in the distinction for that I see with you is you're really big on the foreign policy side. You are a non-interventionist. You're not a very hawkish person.
No,
Um,
no, not at
so
all.
what is your idea of what America's foreign policy should look like?
Our foreign policy should look like we'll trade with anybody,
Yeah,
but you will not undercut or steal any of our products, patents, or anything like that. If you need something that was developed in the United States, you have to buy it through the
yeah,
proper channels. And I don't really care what they do, um, outside of that. But if the the temperature of the citizens here don't want to trade with a particular nation because they're violent,
yeah,
then maybe we don't trade with them. But I'm worried about that because you have countries that shift their policies and how they react to their own citizens all the time. And maybe in the future we do need their help, but we burned that bridge because we didn't want to trade with them because they had one bad president, like we have now. You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Australia, for example, uh,
yeah.
of today was like, let's not trade with them because they're holding their people in concentration camps. I don't think you want to burn that bridge because maybe they're able to uprise, which it looks like they're going to be able to. And then
Yeah.
they're back on the right path. And now they're like, well, you hurt us because you stopped trade with us and it made it harder for us to uprise because we were so poor.
Yeah, that's that. I could definitely understand that perspective with it. I think that what now that you bring it up, I wonder. So, would you want to see us set a standard for who we trade? We will trade with anyone whose labor standards meet the following: you don't use slave labor, you don't treat you don't exploit your people for labor like the Chinas do, and a lot of but the thing is with that is that a lot of up and coming countries, we did it ourselves, right? We had a period during the Industrial Revolution where we really were horrible with labor. And what spawned from that is the thing is though, is that as your economy grows, so does the education of
Hmm.
the people, the intelligence
Hmm.
of the people. And
Hmm.
along the way, we, the people, stand up and realize, hey, we actually have power here. This is why I'm not anti union, I'm anti public sector union.
See, and
Because,
I wouldn't care,
yeah,
me personally, but allow the American people to decide for themselves. If
yeah,
that was what politicians were running on, ideas like that, like the dividing line was whether we'll trade with everyone, no rules, or we'll trade with everyone that doesn't use
meets,
slave labor, yeah,
yeah.
meets a certain standard. Oh,
Hmm.
you want to talk about how great our debates would be? Oh my goodness, we'd actually be progressing and like moving in a positive direction if those were our
Exactly.
conversations and debates,
Exactly. Because, like, you would be
because it's a
actually,
debate no one has.
yeah. No, and I think you're 100% right. Those are the kinds of issues because what if you just set the standard we will trade with anyone that ensures the laborers are getting paid something.
Mhm.
That's it. That's so they can't use slave labor and and our companies can't use slave labor, so their employees must get paid,
Mhm.
right? So you can set the standard that like, hey, as long as if you're going into a country, even if they allow slave labor by technicality, you are
Mhm.
not allowed to participate. You must pay the employees directly, and that country will have to accept that because at that point, would you consider an American business operating in a foreign country to be an extension of the American people?
Uh, oh man, me personally, how would I view it,
So let me
or
give
how
you
do
an
we view it
example.
currently?
Yeah, yeah. So let me give you an example. So say there's a Nike factory. Now that China's kind of moved up, well, now we're moving over into Africa for sources of cheap
Mhm.
labor.
Mhm.
And so there's a nation. Let's just we won't say that this country participates in slavery, but Libya, who actually participates in slavery, right? Nike sets up a factory there and they pay the employees, but Libya's like, no, these are slaves. You're not allowed to pay them. And so people from Libya attack the Nike factory. Would you consider that an attack on an American entity?
No, I would not.
Okay. So because like I think that it would there are I would understand the argument that, hey, Nike moved over there with the express intent to pay the people and treat them, you know, more humanely than they are currently, and then Nike got attacked for that. So they were necessarily doing something good. They were treating people more humanely than they had been treated before, and they were attacked in response. What would you suggest then is the response for that? Pull Nike out?
So if a company wants to move their efforts to a separate country in order to increase their profit margins and stuff like that, you forfeit all the protections that you had if you were
Okay.
being produced in America.
Okay.
Our job
Fair
is
enough.
to protect the American worker,
Hmm.
and it's we don't the business, I guess, but truly, especially when you're talking about huge businesses, we are literally expressly just to protect the worker of that
Hmm.
business. We don't even really care about the business itself. For example, like the CEO kind of deal. we
Yeah.
we are specifically trying to protect the workers. um and if you're going to move over there, yeah, your CEO might be American and your business might be quote unquote American, but I have no reason to protect those workers.
Yeah, and that's okay. Fair enough. And I would honestly, my response personally would also be, well, maybe Nike should move out of there, and the people can make it known that they would like Nike to come back and they want their conditions to change. Because that could be a spur.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But that's none of my business.
yeah,
If Nike wants to work with us, then we'll protect them and their patents, and you will never see a Chinese knockoff of a Nike Roush in America ever.
yeah. Fair enough. 'Cause speaking of China moving into places, right? So, because
Mhm,
let's talk about Afghanistan a little bit, right? So
mhm.
now that we have gotten out of Afghanistan and the pullout was, about as good as a poor person pulling out of another poor person, if you get what I'm saying. Uh,
Oh my goodness. No, the pullout was was about as good as an old Asian lady backing out of a twisty turny driveway
no, the pullout game is as bad as
with
Joe
light
Biden.
poles lined down it.
No, it's as bad as Joe Biden trying to pull out of a twisty turny driveway in the
Yeah.
middle of the day with it very clearly illuminated entirely. No,
No, he's
it's
trying to drive up it. He's going forward.
hence why it's bad, dude. But anyways, I don't know where I forgot where. Oh yeah, so the pullout of Afghanistan,
Afghanistan.
right? So now you're having people suggest that this is going to be really bad for America because immediately the Taliban is going to start teaming up with China.
Uh-huh.
You've heard that. So before I get into my opinion on it, what is your opinion of because you're seeing this neoconservative push, right? For the last 20 years, terrorism, right? We need to
Mhm,
get the terrorists, right?
mhm.
That has been the calling card of the neocon that wants to keep us in perpetual wars. It's shifting to China.
Yeah.
Now, what what do you think of the push to somehow make it seem like China is going to be more successful at global expansion than even America is?
Um, we shouldn't be globally expanding.
True, but let's talk about the idea that China is.
Okay, the idea that China is I don't I don't think they'll be as successful as the warmongers are expecting them to be,
Hmm.
or I don't even know if they're expecting them to be, but trying to scare us that they are, I think is a better way to phrase it. I think it's just another money grab.
Yeah,
Is as
a
simple
hundred
as that.
percent. No, it is.
I think China is weaker than they
Mm.
let on, but so
Yes,
are we. Um, we try
yes.
to we everyone BS's everyone makes themselves or talks about themselves being so great, so this, so that, but they have a lot of problems internally, and with us
Such
not being
as,
able to see it, well, uh, I, I think they have more turmoil. Um, I would guess there are actually quite a bit of citizens that look at the treatment of others in their country with different viewpoints and stuff, and are probably
Yeah.
like, you know, this is not right. And then you see Hong Kong. They've been able to quiet that down quite a bit, but I think we'll see another resurgence
Yeah,
for
because
the freedom fight.
The Chinese Communist Party is currently really cracking down influentially
Mhm.
in Hong Kong right now. They're shutting down free press outlets. They are shutting down. So I'm going to give you some information on the current
Oh, time
situation.
out, time out.
Yeah,
Uh, is it Pamela Perry?
yeah.
She says
Don't say
aloha.
use the word vacation, please, so we don't get pulled off, and use the beer bug.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, no, I got you. Oh, vacation. I like that. Fifth week without a job because she won't comply. That is great. You should
You're a strong
honestly
person.
be very proud of yours. Well, um, you should be very thankful that you have the strength to do that. And I commend you.
Yes, a hundred
And I
percent.
thank you. That's real American right there. That's Americana. One thing I've done in this last year, Kevin, I don't know if you join me on this, but I've been focusing on how beautiful Americana is. And it's
Yes,
the blue collar man and the
yes.
old man who smokes 50 cigarettes. Actually, we have an employee that smokes 5 boxes a day.
It's
Uh,
it's it's
it's
the
the
it's
guys like that that can weld and have skin thick as leather. I find that just so
dude.
inspiring, and it's so
I
beautiful. The Americana.
I look at it when you go into a diner and you've got, the middle-aged woman who just comes up and gives you a smile that brightens your day and gets your food for you. And I see it every day when I'm walking, when I'm walking down the street, and I just see the couples out walking their dogs with their kids. And it just, especially here around Fort Collins, it's you're I think we're starting to see a resurgence of the family, of the strong. I think we're hitting the bad times, right? But I think we're starting to see kind of a resurgence of the communal aspects of America that made it so special too.
Dude,
And
Americana is resurging right now, and it's so beautiful. I just can't wait to see what the future holds when Americana becomes so almost, mainstream without it being really mainstream. Because obviously, as long as we're still in the bad times, it's going to be viewed as terrorism. But you have parents at all these school boards
yes,
screaming, saying, "You think you're so high, sitting on your throne of thorns." But you will be taken down and you will be punished just as much as everyone else is. And that, oh, just warms my heart.
yeah, it's very interesting what's currently going on, especially across school boards. So I talk about it all the time. The three monopolies a government must have based on their importance, right? A monopoly on violence, that's like the most basic thing a state must have, is the monopoly on violence. Like without that, they literally are no longer aren't a state.
Mhm.
Well, once you get that monopoly on violence and you become a state, you must have a monopoly on the currency. You must be able to dictate the terms of trade and be able to track and control that aspect, the money aspect of people's lives. You have to be able to control that, because if you can control that, you can dictate stuff like, hey, your money is worthless unless you spend it. Your
Yep.
money is worthless unless you're investing it or unless you're putting it back in the system. Because
Mhm.
what we're going to do is we're going to print more up. So the money that you put in your bank account is going to lose value no matter what.
Yep.
So they encourage that kind of stuff. And then finally, but most importantly, is the monopoly on education.
Yep.
Right now, the government has most children between the ages of 5 and 18 for 8 hours a day.
I
And when
know,
they
which
have
is
them,
awful.
yeah. So this is why I'm kind of like, I'm not kind of, I have just completely taken the white pill in this situation. What do you think? What is the feelings that you feel, and what kind of motivations does it give you seeing how active parents are becoming in their children's education right now?
I think slowly but surely, but I'm afraid it might be too slow how active parents are getting. Um, oh boy.
To,
Uh,
to
my
it went
my
from almost
mom,
nothing to now they're
yes,
domestic
to
terrorists in a
this much.
year.
I know, which is great. I do see a resurgence around Oklahoma. Um, I'm hoping it's not too little, too late, and I'm hoping that something can be done. I've seen two uh, school boards and superintendents get ran out in Oklahoma. One was in Ninica. They flipped that everyone in the school board had to resign, and the superintendent had to resign as well. And so I am seeing it. But the big schools where all the population is, uh, I'm not seeing it as fast as I want to, but I'm greedy in that standpoint where, this should have happened 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, really.
Should have happened then, but the next best time is now.
You are not lying. So we'll see. We'll see how it unfolds. Um, I'm optimistic. You brought some stuff to point, or brought it to light months ago, and it's made me a little more optimistic, especially with how it's going. But
What was it
only
I
time
said?
can tell. You were saying, I said it was too little, too late. They're not actually going to do anything, and you said just wait. Uh, Parents will increasingly get more upset,
Mhm.
and they have, uh, especially in California. There's
Oh
where
yeah.
the majority of videos I see. Uh, but it's still an uphill battle.
Let's put it this way. There was a California school district, a very liberal California school district. I have to remember exactly where it was, but it was around the San Francisco area, not in San Francisco, not in the Bay itself. That after students burned a gay pride flag,
Mhm.
the school itself just banned any flag that isn't an unaltered American flag.
Wow.
That's the only flag allowed to be hung in your classroom now is the American flag. And I was like, you know what? That's a public school
Wow.
receiving public funds. They have a duty to not promote one ideology over the other. The only ideology that they are allowed to promote is the American ideology. What those flags, what those 50 stars and stripes, those 50 stars, those 13 stripes behind you represent.
Can I say something that's kind of funny?
No, you have no. Yes.
Yo, yo, my next door neighbor, up here at my parents' house, they have a kid who's like transsexual. It's a girl, but I
we
guess the
use we
girl's now.
use Transformers and Decepticons here. We because
Okay.
YouTube is insane, so we got to get very creative. So just Decepticons.
Okay. It is a person that is one thing and is transformed into another.
So Starscream.
Yeah.
We know what it is. Just call it a Decepticon. I've got a Decepticon living next door to me.
Okay, a Decepticon. Well, okay, wait. Is a Transformer? Which one's which?
I mean, just use Transformer terms. If it's
All right,
Transformer terms.
I got a female Decepticon that is now a male Transformer. um, and the male Transformer flies the pride flag, and someone's been going around and stealing the flags in this neighborhood and the neighborhood across the like half a mile away, and just been stealing them. They're just disappearing, and it is the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. And on the neighborhood apps and stuff, everyone's writing in, my gay pride flag got stolen last night. We need to find these people.
I will say
it gets like 2 likes.
I will say I understand the sentiment, but like I do not approve of taking some person's
No,
property.
me neither. But
That is
funny.
absolutely hilarious. But
Funny.
What the reason why I'm always going to be so optimistic and why I'm going to have hope is because I know that the American people have the ability and the strength to overcome whatever is put before them. And the problem that we're running into, the reason why things are getting as bad as they are, is not because of the conservatives or the liberals, whatever. It is because of just the moderates. It's because of the people in the middle there's a lot of people who are apathetic, who don't really want to participate in the system. They just want to live their lives. They want to raise their families. They want to go to work. They want to go on vacations, and that's what they want to do. And that's perfectly fine. There is no problem with that. That is your right as an American. But you do have to understand that if you want to live that life, it doesn't mean you can't participate. It means that you just got to reduce it, because when you don't participate at all and when you allow your narrative and your ideas to be dominated and manipulated by our corporate media, you're
I
we're going to
I
end up in this.
disagree.
Yeah.
I disagree with they can't not participate and not want change. Um, in the Declaration of Independence, it says it's not only our right but our duty. And when something's your duty, you must do it.
Yeah, it's
It's not only our right but our duty to
participate.
participate against things that are unconstitutional and infringe on rights, and
I
that's what we
agree.
have to do. So that's our duty as Americans. If we're going to be here, we do have to participate. We cannot stand idly by and not do anything.
Yes, that.
And middle America, your moderate Americans that are probably on the coasts. And I see Robin saying she's not seeing any of the change that we're seeing here in Oklahoma and Oregon. And it's your neighbors who are standing idly by or to left. And I don't know.
There,
I've never been to Oregon, so I couldn't say, but I would
well,
guess
East
that they're
Oregon
not.
is different than coastal Oregon. Did you know Oregon was literally created to be a whites only like it was literally created to keep black people out of a territory.
It's too cold for blacks, so I can
Yeah,
understand.
I mean Oregon's freaking gorgeous, man. The
Well,
sad part about Portland is that it is
great
one of the
lavender
most
area.
beautiful. Portland's one of the most beautiful cities in America, except when Antifa is lighting it on fire,
Mhm.
which has been a lot lately. But Oregon had what are called sundown towns. Right, when the sun goes down, you better get out of town. That was actually Oregon law for the
We did
longest
too.
time. Yeah, no, Oklahoma did too, but Oregon was the most extreme state on it.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
It was
sure.
like Oregon was a sundown state.
But
Um,
but let's talk about current. I would guess your farmers in Oregon are probably your classic libertarian. I know you guys consider yourself libertarians, you in particular,
they want to
Kevin,
join
but
Idaho.
you
I'm pretty
you are
sure.
a new breed of libertarian. Whether you guys recognize it or not, the classic libertarian from 15 years ago was simply, "I don't care, leave me alone."
Yeah.
Um, and that's what got us in this trouble. My parents were like that until recently. Uh,
Hmm.
I don't care what you guys do in your bedroom. I don't care what you guys do in uh, uh, just over there. Just keep it over there. But inherently, they can't keep it over there.
Yeah. Well, it's not. What happened is that, because I agree with you. I do agree with you to an extent. And the additionally, what I see going on is that people are so wrapped up. The problem with the Transformer movement, the the Decepticon movement, right, is that
Mhm.
um, it comes part of what went into it is this idea that you are perfect just the way you are. We have to care about kids' self-esteem. You can't tell your child something's wrong. And parents and psychologists do not, and therapists do not have the courage to look at someone who is saying, hey, like, I get it. You don't identify as a gender. You don't identify, you're non-conforming. What's going on? Like, clearly something else is additionally wrong.
Yeah.
You're not perfect. And Jordan Peterson, no one is perfect. There is literally no one who is good enough the way they are. No one exists that is good enough the way they are, because the only way you can be good enough the way you are is if you're perfect, and no one is perfect. But
Mhm.
parents don't want to tell their children this. Parents don't want to hurt their children. Their child is clearly going through some stuff. And you also have women that are Munchausen's by proxy all over their kids.
Mhm.
Um,
And that's because the church has fallen out.
yes,
With people less and less
there.
Christian.
Yeah, there was this question earlier.
Yeah, yeah. You said my stance on Christianity. I think there's a lot of harmful Christianity, but I do think there's a lot of
Good Christianity.
good Christianity, and I hope this isn't targeted at anyone, but the Joel Osteens of the world
Hmm.
are really detrimental to Christianity.
Yes, I
That
would agree.
as long as you just believe in your heart, everything's good, and that that's that's toxic, and it will only lead to more harm. And we have to identify truths and speak truth, and
Yes.
that's what will lead us out of darkness and into light. Um, and these conversations are just to find truths.
Yeah.
So
Um, it was, and I think that additionally, like, because like I myself, when you first met me, I wasn't very Christian, was I? Like I
no,
was,
no.
no, but I have steadily been growing personally in my own faith as I moved forward because a part of Christianity is not about going to church necessarily. It's about your actions in the world, and it's your actions to your fellow man. And there is something to be said for the golden rule. The golden rule is the golden rule because treat others as you would treat yourself is not just present in Christianity, it's present in most religions that pop up. Um, Buddhism, especially, right? And so, um, Christianity and this just the spirituality, I think that one of the biggest issues we're running into is that everyone has a God-shaped hole in their heart. I forget who first proposed that idea, but I'm a huge subscriber to it. And that God-shaped hole in their heart exists because, we are all children of God. However, based on your culture might represent that spiritual aspect in a different way, separate from Christianity. Um, Now, the problem comes in when whatever is filling that void is no longer something that transcends humanity, that transcends the physical world, right?
Mhm.
Such as God, such as such as Brahman and stuff like that. When it's something that is actually present in the world and can be found in the world, having your foundation be of Earth itself, of nature, is incredibly not of nature, of man, right? Of man is incredibly toxic. Do you think that we are seeing a lot of issues that spring from that right now? I'm asking this question because I really have to go to the bathroom, and I'm trying. If you could talk on some that or something similar for a little bit, for
Yeah,
like
I
45 seconds, you'd be a
can
hero.
definitely try. 45 seconds. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
dude.
fine.
I don't need much time.
Yeah, so there's a separation between flesh and spirit, and I think with everyone wanting to live of the flesh, that's where we're finding a lot of our issues. We have people like Billie Eilish and stuff like that saying, do what you want and do what makes you feel good and forget everything else. And that's really of the flesh, and that's a problem. Do you guys in the chat have anything to say about that in particular? And I'll respond to that. I think that's probably the easiest thing. Wash your hands. What do you mean by that? But we can talk about let's see. Let's come on, chat. I need you chat on this one. Kind of feel like I've summed everything up between the flesh and the spirit. I can talk more about that if
I
that's
teed you up
necessary.
on hedonism, and you couldn't even go into hedonism for like 10
Oh
seconds.
my goodness. Look, hold up, man. Like it's cut and dry for me. Like
Yeah. Well,
there's a separation between flesh and spirit. And
yeah.
right now, through current
Well, why do you
aspects
think that's
of
important?
why do I think that's
Yeah.
important? What do you mean?
Like because you say there's a separation of flesh and spirit,
Uh-huh.
having that value itself means and expressing that part of the reason for the downfall of our society is a failure to do so must place it very high on your hierarchy of values. Why does it go so far up? Why is it so important? Um, why is it that what precedes the fall of basically every major empire is hedonism? Like that.
Because you fall away from God. God is
Yeah.
of the spirit.
Hmm.
And
But
it's simple and plain.
yeah, no, that's very fair. So
There's okay. Here's another thing about Christianity that I
mhm.
must bring up is people try to make it extremely complex, and it's not. It's not near as complex as some people make it out to be.
Yeah. What is
That's
that?
it.
No. Oh, that's it. That's it. That's where you're going with that. Okay. Well, no, you're good.
Like I said, like
No, you're good.
it's very
It's
cut
very
and
cut and
dry.
dry. Yeah.
It's cut and dry. People complex
So
make it too hard.
I'll I'll speak a little bit on
And
this
I
as
think
someone
that's
who's
and I'll tell you why.
yeah.
And here I could go with it.
Mhm.
People make it complex because it's easier to make money off of people.
Well, there's that. Yeah, yeah. Also, so I went through you when you met me. I was only like a year removed from my socialist phase, right? I was
Mhm.
like, and so the thing is that when I was going through that phase, the mentality I had towards the world when I was there was one of constantly trying to find a reason other than myself for why I continued to fail or why I was depressed. It came from a position. I was in a position where I was like, well, the only thing that matters is my own happiness, my own, and if you something that brings me pleasure that pleasure must be happiness. Therefore, pleasure equals happiness. Therefore, anything pleasurable is good because
Oh, so you
happiness
got
is
your
good.
dopamine messed up.
Yeah. So it was, I was all about Tinder. I was all about,
Yeah.
I was having some fun, right?
Yeah,
But
you were living of the flesh.
yes, I was very much living in the flesh. And the thing was, is that
That's
I
why
had
you
been
have
doing
to be
that for a
born
while.
again.
I was living that for a while, so it's like it's very weird that so I went through incredibly severe depression for years, like almost a
Mhm.
decade, basically a decade. I was incredibly depressed nonstop, and it's weird that that decade kind of coincided from when I fell away from God, because when I was up and through middle school, man. Every winter I was at Bible camp. Every summer I was at Bible camp. Every Wednesday, like when I was in middle school, especially every Wednesday I was at youth group. Then I was doing Bible studies on Tuesdays, small groups. I was doing church every Sunday. I would go to two services. I would go to the youth group and then I'd go to the contemporary big people service. Like I was going on mission trips and like I was actually doing. I felt like I was doing pretty well. And then I was in high school when I fell away and um I started to really see, I got addicted to drugs. I was smoking, I got in with the wrong people. Let's just say I was very much pursuing the flesh. Um, and, it's that lasted for like, well, not the drugs. Like I was able to get myself off the drugs. And when I joined the army, that was kind of the first step in the right direction to taking back who I was. But it wasn't until started listening to Jordan Peterson and stuff, and this is why I credit him with saving my life and everything like that. But when my mother passed away, I was very, at that point, even then, I was still like, hey, I don't want my mom's funeral in a church. I think church is horrible. I think that religion is is one of the greatest sources of conflict in our world today, kind of idea.
Mhm.
That's kind of the stage I was at, even as recently as 2017. And then I started to realize that like what is my motivation? Like why am I doing what I'm doing? And then I started listening to Jordan Peterson and he was like, the reason you're depressed, man, is because you can be so much more than you are right now. Why don't you start doing that? Why don't you start pursuing being better? And then I listened to his lectures on God and he goes, I don't know if God exists, but I live my life as if he does. And that really struck a chord with me because you start to realize, you start to have this you start to it was uncanny how every time I took a step further into the back onto the path with God, I would feel better about myself. I would feel more fulfilled. And eventually I finally reached where I'm at right now, where like I've just like, you know what, this every time I take a step things get better, so I'm just going to start running that direction, and things just keep getting better, and I keep feeling more fulfilled. And it's that feeling of fulfillment, of achievement, of feeling good about who you are as a person, even though you're not perfect, but feeling good about taking those strides in the right direction. Like it's that feeling that is so absent from so many young people's lives right now because we have so rejected that spiritual guide. People are grounded in the material, in the current world, in the capitalism. I say this all the time. I'm like, people on the left, when what they're accusing you of, it's projection.
Mhm.
They hate capitalism because the criticisms have for capitalism, its materialist nature, its abuse, all this other stuff, they know they are guilty of it. And
Well,
so
I think they hate capitalism because, okay, capitalism is essentially nature, correct? The strongest survive. It's Darwinism, quote unquote, and
yeah.
Darwinism's. Blech. But anyways, it's because they're incapable of surviving,
Yeah.
uh, and they need to cling on to authority. And the state is the authority that they will be puppy dogs for in order to hope to survive, and that's the only way they can survive. And that's they're weak, essentially. They cannot survive in a system that we want. And that's why I think we need a divorce.
Back on it. Back on it. Yeah.
Well, that's where all
Yeah.
roads lead to divorcing the
Yeah.
left.
Do you think the part of the need for the divorce comes down to the fact that the divide has gotten to the point where the left doesn't even consider the rights established in the Bill of Rights to be rights, and the conservatives say, actually, yeah, I have the right to say what I want, and
That's part of it.
yeah,
But they're a cancer to us,
hmm
and we are a cancer to them. I
yes,
think they would be happier, and we would be happier. I know we would be happier, but I think they would be happier
yeah,
if we went ahead and formed separate systems so that we don't have to argue all the time. They
yeah,
view us as literally the worst thing, and we
yeah.
view them as the worst thing.
Yeah, that is, I think that's a very good point you bring up, because whenever I get called a Nazi,
Mhm.
I've started taking the tone of that you're kind of using that like a racial slur, and
Mhm.
people will obviously be like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, is it not the case that you personally consider the Nazis to be the most evil group of people that have ever existed, led by the most evil man that ever existed?
Mhm.
The point of them not even being human in your eyes. And yeah, it's like, so when you call me a Nazi, are you not saying that I am so evil, I exist as one of them in your mind? I am equal to them in your mind. Well, yeah. It's like, you are literally trying to call me something that you think dehumanizes me to the point of being just a massive evil,
Mhm.
as the Nazis were. How is that? How is calling someone something with the express intent of trying to equate them to something subhuman not some form of racial slur? It's like, and then they end up devaluing the word
I
along the
like
way. But,
Pamela's on it right there. UN Agenda 2030.
ooh, yeah, no, it. But the thing is that it's a testament of the elite's incompetence, man. Like, so let's
Well, see,
you
if
like you some Alex Jones.
yeah, I do.
Yeah. So what
I do.
is UN Agenda 2030? What is this all revolving around? What is the NWO, the GR,
Mhm.
the boop button?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is that? What is going on there?
The UN is trying to create a new world order, essentially a one world government, and we're the biggest thing that's standing in the way. And so, any way that they can take us down, and I understand that the UN agenda uh, is calling for us to separate. But here's the issue: if we separate on their terms, then they succeed. But if we separate on our terms, then it's a huge failure,
Yeah.
and we're able to prevent all the issues. And until we separate, I don't. We'll separate on their terms, and that's the problem right now.
Yeah. For those of you who are unaware, there this just like Rules for Radicals right there. They openly
Mhm.
document how they're going to try to shape the world into their image going forward, into the image they want going forward. When I say they, I'm talking about, because it's always like when you come up with a conspiracy, right? Who is, in order for it to have any form of validity, you need to be able to point out who
Mhm.
they is. In this case, just go look up the list on the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, the
I'm
World
not gonna,
Economic.
don't say the other names because that'll. But yes, so
Oh,
just
I won't say that. Uh,
just start at the World Economic Forum.
can I point out one
Yes,
individual that I think will be easy? If you
not
look
if
up,
it rhymes with Koros.
no, it's it rhymes with Charles Schwab.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Santa Claus.
If you will look up Klaus Schwab's,
Yes.
speeches, I think they're
Yeah.
on YouTube. If
No,
you'll
they
look
are.
those up and just watch some of them, and they'll be tough sometimes, but if you'll just watch some of them and listen to what he's saying, you that's the game plan, and he's called for, and the UN has produced that video of the future society. What's it
hmm
called?
Uh, the It's not the Great Reset.
No, but they do have a whole book and pamphlet
Bilderberg or Dava.
of the Great Reset.
Yeah.
Their last meeting
Hmm.
was covering the World Economics last meeting was covering the Great Reset, and it talks about
Is there any current U.S. politicians with one eye that participate in that?
yeah. You were a fan of his, so how about you talk about him?
Yeah. So for those of you who do not know, the guy with one eye, that is Congressman Mr. Dan Crenshaw. He is at that World Economic Forum. He's I personally believe, not, I don't believe, but I am going to treat him as I treat every other politician. He is corrupt in my
Yeah,
eyes until I personally can
he's
verify
slime.
otherwise.
He's slime, and he
He
almost
is,
he almost red flagged lawed you, and you almost fell
yeah.
for it.
Yeah. By the way, there is no such thing as a constitutional red flag law.
No,
That they do not exist.
it's impossible.
Yeah.
That's thought crimes, and thought crimes are not constitutional.
By the way, chat, if for those of you watching, please submit your questions in the chat. We're going to start getting to them as we go along here. Whatever you want to ask, please go ahead and ask. This is going to be the super chat portion of our show today. So go ahead and start getting your questions in there. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Get your friends watching if you enjoy what we're talking about today. Get
Tracy, he's worse than a rhino. He's
oh,
just a communist.
he's a globalist in sheep's clothing. So,
Yeah.
well, that's because that's the big thing is like globalism. Like, what is because people ask, well, what is bad about the idea of creating a global hegemonic, peaceful, openly trading society? Why is it a bad thing that there are people out there who are trying to just get us to move away from war and into global trade? Maybe it's a good thing to have a global government that'll stop these
Mhm.
conflicts.
Mhm. In the same way that our federal government has hurt us, let's take Louisiana versus Colorado.
Yeah.
Um, think about a federal law that regards something as simple as agriculture.
Hmm.
Your two climates are extremely different, and let's say that Colorado, that I don't know, rice fields, just something random. Let's say rice fields have created like a huge detriment to Colorado's climate. And so the federal government says, okay, no one can plant rice fields. Whereas in a marshy area like Louisiana, let's say rice does really well down there. I have no idea if it does. Um,
Let's assume.
yeah, let's just assume that it does. Now you've taken their biggest export, and now you
Hmm.
have one rule that everyone has to follow, but it doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
Same thing would happen in a global government. We'd all have to lose our identities and our cultures. Well, our cultures are what make us so strong, especially here in the West. Currently, our culture is kind of dropping the ball, but
Yes, I would
that's
agree.
that's our number one export is culture. Hulk
No, you're
Hogan
right.
goes anywhere in the world, and everyone still knows who he is. Um,
Kobe.
yeah, Kobe. Literally any of our pop idols go across and sell out. But you bring a pop idol from, I don't know, Uganda or something, and they won't even be able to like fill up a little dive bar or anything like that, like a community center. They can't even fill up a community center worth of fans.
Yeah,
Our number one global export here is culture,
yeah.
and the West in general. It is sports is obvious showcase of that.
We were talking about China earlier and why China is not going to be a threat in their expansion globally, and I need to give my perspective on that as well because the cultural aspect is very important. Our exporting of culture. So what you're
Mhm,
currently seeing right now is back in the '90s, the Chinese Communist Party decided to let the Chinese people suckle at the teat of capitalism a little bit
mhm.
to help them along because like they realized very quickly we gotta have some kind of free trade involved here. And it started in the 70s and into the 80s and 90s. It was so successful that by the 90s they started to actually even let the culture in with it. Um, and so what you're seeing over the last year and a half is kind of like Xi Jinping went and looked around and said, okay, so we've got people doing their lay down movement where they do, they lay down and refuse to go to work. We got people like, we have boys outnumber girls 50 million by 50 million right now. China, for example, their social security program. In America, ours isn't solvent because we're paying at about a 2.5 to 1 ratio in to out, right? 2.5 people paying in for every one taking out. In China, it is one paying in for every 3 taking out currently. The Chinese Communist Party they built an entire replica of the city of Paris, France, out in the frickin' desert. No one lives there, but it costs billions upon billions upon billions of dollars to build. Additionally, China has been trying to match housing growth to the point where it now outstrips housing growth, except it's in mostly rural areas where no one wants to live. And the places where people want to live, they don't have any housing available, and it's about 49 times the price it should be. They have When we went into our recession in 2008, we were sitting at about $1 trillion in bad debt, such as bad mortgages and credit cards. China currently has $7 trillion worth of that. They are shutting down every avenue of free speech. There is no longer any oppositional media allowed to be put out. They kind of allowed a little bit. You are allowed to be somewhat critical of the Chinese Communist Party at times, right? Mm-hmm. That's gone. They've eliminated that entirely. Mm-hmm. They have a problem where their buildings that they build are fucking collapsing all over their country. They look up tofu dreg. You're an engineer, right? So tofu dreg is what the people in China call these buildings that are currently being built by the Chinese Communist Party supported construction companies, to the point where you'll see videos where they smack steel rebar, they just smack it on the concrete and it snaps, or people can take it and just bend it in half and snap it really quick. This is what they're building buildings with, and they are collapsing. Their roads are collapsing, their freeways are collapsing. China is a paper tiger. They are projecting a power that they know they do not have, and they're trying to reconsolidate back in amongst the turtle is trying to withdraw into the shell. If you think that China is going to somehow supplant America over the next 50 years as the world power, you have to explain to me how somehow communism is better than capitalism.
Facts.
There are people that suggest that our approach to the Soviet Union, if we had just let them be and not really done anything, they'd have probably collapsed by the 60s. It was our intervention that kept them going.
Well, what's keeping them going really is if their supply's low and their demand's high, they just get rid of the demand.
Yeah.
And China hasn't done that to the extent, but I'm sure China will do it if necessary, obviously.
Yeah, they're going to try to expand. People are worried about what's going on in Taiwan, and I think
you eliminate the demand.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
if you have too many people needing something, you just eliminate the demand.
Yeah, by just hey, look, 50 million a year going to go away. But people are worried about China moving into Taiwan because of their superconductors. I look at it and I'm like, well, we've personally placed 4 aircraft carriers there, and then the UK, Australia, everyone's joining. China's not going to actually attack Taiwan. Their goal is to try to influence them culturally. But let's get to some of the questions here.
Some vacation stuff.
Oh yeah. Will Child Protective Services start coming for parents who don't get their children a good vacation when it is approved? Honestly, champ,
yes.
100%. If it's in a blue state, if it's California, 100% they're going to start doing that. And this is why it is so important. This is the baby step. If you can get people to accept the medical procedure of a shot in the arm as that it can be dictated by the government, that doesn't stop anywhere. Once you give the government that power to dictate medical procedures, they're going to use it to the full extent. Of course, CPS is going to come after these. CPS is governed and run and filled out with people that are on the left.
This is one part where we slightly disagree on the vacations, but I can tell you, for example, the champ. So they tested us out years ago on whether we would comply or not, and it looks fairly good that we will.
Yep.
Unfortunately. So in California, when they first started enacting all their assault weapons bans and bump stock bans and stuff like that, they came and started confiscating. And I saw countless videos of them doing exactly that. Uh, Essentially, it was a no-knock warrant, but they did it in broad daylight where they were hoping the homeowner was there, and they would ask them to pull out all their firearms and run through their list and take which ones that didn't comply. And one guy was like, "Well, can I take my scope off that? Because that scope's expensive." And they said, "No, it has to be as is." And there was not an uproar. Now in the gun community, there was an uproar and people were upset, but nothing actually happened. And so they're going to bank on that being the same case with the vacations.
I would agree with you. I think that Michael Malice, by the way, who is one of my heroes, he's the source of my political idea of "you do not speak for me. Everything is just applying that principle." But Michael Malice made the point that this last year and a half has given some very terrifyingly powerful people some very terrifyingly powerful information about the compliance of the American people, about how easy it will be. Um, and unless we can make it so that this past year and a half, what's gone on ends up in a year and a half in that never being able to happen again, this is just the test run, if you will. It's gonna get worse from here. And so we had another good question up here because this is actually a big one on the divorce topic. So Tracy asks, "I love some people on the left. They have flawed thinking. How to reconcile divorce? How does that draw the line in the sand? Like, do you make them leave the USA? Because like one of the issues I also come up with is you never have any idea. Um, you never have any real idea if your child is going to be on the left or anything like that, because the saying goes, if you're not a socialist in your 20s, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative in your 40s, you have no brain. Conservatism comes with experience almost. So how can we reconcile the fact that young people will almost always have an inclination to ideas of the left?"
Um, that's a great question. So as far as how do we draw the sign of the land and do we make them leave the USA and stuff, there are a handful of schools of thought that that describe different ways that we could settle that. All my resources on this have been long deleted off of YouTube, and they're on BitChute and stuff like that. But I'm not going to drop names and stuff on
Hmm.
account. We might come into more trouble. Uh, let's just I'll go over two ideas briefly. So one idea is that the people on the left, majority of them live in cities, big
Hmm.
cities.
Hmm.
We would make separate city states so that this would be not too bad of a divorce. This is really actually simple. New York City, for example, would rule themselves, and uh, they would have their own set of their governor, essentially. Uh, and rather than being a mayor, would be a governor of all of the bounds that encapsulate New York City, Manhattan, all the neighborhoods and stuff. But it
Yeah.
couldn't affect anything that's going out towards like Albany and Syracuse, out there towards
Yeah.
the country and stuff like that. You have Austin, Texas, leans left. Anything Austin wants to do won't affect people in small towns like Tyler and Decatur, and we can go even smaller and stuff like that. It wouldn't be able to reach them,
Hmm.
for example, and state votes, state proposals and stuff would be separate depending on whether you were in the city
Yeah.
state or in the state.
Yeah.
So that's one example. The other example that some people have thought is that if you will just divide up some of the coastal states where the majority of left leaning people live, and then have a grace period of moving, and have them move to the coastal regions, there would still be travel in between all of them. But the
Somehow
money,
subsidize it.
yeah, and the money, yeah, you would subsidize the moving and stuff like that. The money system would change probably where currency could probably be traded throughout,
Hmm.
but it wouldn't be worth the same.
Yeah, that's fair.
Two
Uh,
different standards.
I think it would kind of be a blend of. I think the city state idea is always a great option, especially when you look at a state like Colorado, where the blue of the state is very concentrated along in
Mhm.
Denver and that I-70 corridor. A city state option there would be a great option. It's but it just comes down to the fact that there's always going to be separate ideologies. It's Jonathan Haidt again. I'm going to talk about him. Shows that it's kind of almost biological how people, whether people are on the left or the right, and so it's it's a very interesting question, but I think we just need to be considering what's going on with the country now. Koby, there are a couple non-political things I want to ask you about. Well, maybe not.
Okay.
Actually, the first one: what happened to proprietarianism, bro?
Well, there's two thoughts about what happened to it. One thought is that it was CIA infiltrated
Wouldn't
and
surprise.
was halfway started by the CIA, and
Wouldn't
then
surprise.
once they caught wind of how fast it was actually mounting and how serious people were, they decided to pull the plug on it, and
Yeah,
it was kind of a social experiment to see how fast they could get people riled up.
they used ideas that were a little bit too good.
Uh-huh. And the other school of thought is that the people that were technically in charge were, although they had great ideas, were still too weak to implement any of them properly.
Yeah. For those of you unaware, proprietarianism was a political movement, an ideology that was centered around the idea of kind of reestablishing judicial process, like dictating judicial process in a way the
Mhm,
Constitution never did, and off the idea of reciprocity,
mhm.
wherein whatever you commit upon me, I am due the just dues, right? So,
Yep.
and just treating people reciprocally. And it kind of just crumbled out of nowhere, just randomly. One of the biggest guys in the movement said that well, I forget his name because it's been so long.
John
Um,
Mark.
John Mark. So he said,
That's the name I wasn't gonna bring up, but if you look up John Mark on BitChute, you will be able to find all the ideas that I have
"Oh shit,
discussed about separation.
that's not going to get this one pulled, is it?
No, it
I hope not.
shouldn't.
Yeah, I hope not.
There's a million John Marks.
Yeah, but anyways, so it kind of his explanation for why is because, like, much like I said to you months before, it
Mhm.
seemed like the people that were in the movement were a little bit too happy with the idea of violence.
And I agree with that, stepping back and really looking at it. They were, uh, to me, it felt like more they were anticipating it, but yeah, I think some people were too gung ho and happy that it was gonna happen, which is
If you
a
look at the
little,
guy,
un it's unsettling, to say the least,
yeah,
and I don't want violence, I really don't. Um,
no,
I I just
we don't.
uh, bad times are coming upon us, and it's
Um,
gonna be hard to avoid.
Yeah, no, and so if you listen to what's his name who started, and this will be really the last thing, he was like, if you remember how he described the idea of getting supplies from National Guard depots, he was talking about it like it would be so cool, it'd be like a freaking video game, and I was just like, you have no freaking idea what you're suggesting here, man. Like, this
This
is
stuff was great.
legitimate. This is legitimate insanity. People are going to die. You need to know that, and so it's like some people, it's like that's why I stand so firmly against the idea of the violence is because, like, I don't think you understand just how bad that is and how desperately we must avoid violence. But the next question I did want to talk to you about is, look, dude, I really need a new anime to watch.
Uh-huh.
What I need some suggestions here. The last one I watched was Demon Slayer, and I freaking adored that one.
Oh, it's great.
Demon Slayer, the animation, dude, the animation in Demon Slayer is legitimate beauty.
Okay, have you seen Cowboy Bebop?
I have not watched Cowboy Bebop.
You need to watch that.
Yeah,
It's an old anime, it's a
I know.
classic, though. It's like Evangelion, if you've seen
I
Evangelion.
haven't seen Evangelion
Oh,
either.
okay, time out, then you're watching Evangelion first.
Okay, Evangelion.
Evangelion.
Okay,
That's
why? So what makes that Evangelion so good? Like, is it the story? Is it the animation? Like, what is it?
it's both. It's a
Yeah,
mecha, so it's about it brings out a lot of, actually, it has a lot of religious, uh,
because it sounds like Evangeline.
subtext.
Yeah.
Has yeah, exactly, and,
we're,
uh,
we're we're getting close to wrapping up here, so let's talk to
it
Kobe
has
about a couple other things.
a religious subtext, but it's a really good storyline. I
Yeah,
highly recommend.
I'm gonna have to check it out. So Cowboy Bebop and Evangelion. I tried watching One Punch Man, but I got a couple episodes in and I stopped. for other.
It's
I don't
funny.
know what.
It's
I don't
so
remember.
funny.
Another one was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah, that's a
That
good one
one's
too.
been highly recommended, but everyone who recommends it say, yeah, just start in season 2 and watch a summary of season 1.
Well, that's not a bad idea. I liked both.
I've heard that it's a little bit boring, and then
It's
Hunter X
funny.
Hunter. I'm like,
Oh,
I'm
Hunter x
on
Hunter is good. That's what I've been watching.
I'm on the second season of that, and it's really good. But like I start watching and then I just drop stuff. So
Yeah.
it's been a long time since I've watched it. But I've really needed like new stuff that's kind of similar to in storytelling and animation like quality to like Demon Slayer.
Mhm.
But it's because I grew up on Dragon Ball Z, man.
Now, Demon Slayer is the new Dragon Ball Z. It's the new Naruto. It's the new all that. It's the best.
Yeah, they better be. Has season 2 started yet?
No,
When is it coming out? Do you know?
2022
Jesus,
fall.
assholes. Jesus, that's so long from now. My lord.
Hey, it takes a lot of work to put out something good.
So I also need your honest opinion.
Mm-hmm.
What is his name? Cordell Williams or Spencer Rattler?
Caleb Williams
Caleb Williams.
or Spencer Rattler. You giving me a choice?
Yeah. So like,
Caleb
what is your
Williams,
opinion
hands
on
down.
OU football?
Okay, actually, so the school newspaper who takes this sports very seriously is able to see on the practice field from their office, and they counted how many snaps Spencer Rattler versus Caleb Williams was getting.
Ooh.
Caleb Williams was getting about twice as many snaps.
He looked better
He
by
looks
a
so
lot.
good. He's a
He had
true
like
freshman.
all the mobility of a Spencer Rattler with like a way better arm, in my
Yeah.
opinion,
So 4
and
more hours, and we'll
taller.
be able to find out who's starting.
Yeah. Who are they playing today?
TCU.
Okay. So that game last week, by the way, that last Saturday was one of the greatest college football days ever. I don't know if you're aware. I was
Alabama
kind of,
lost.
oh my God, I've never been a Texas A&M fan except for that moment, and I was like all about it. That was, dude, like I didn't know Bama could lose. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea
They still got to
that
go play
Bama,
Auburn
and they got to play Georgia at some point too.
for the SEC championship if they don't lose.
Yeah. Kentucky has a better record than freaking Bama right now, man.
Yep.
Where did that come from? Like, I last weekend, because right before the OU Texas game, the Ole Miss Arkansas game, or no, Ole Miss was
really
it?
good.
It was Ole Miss. Yeah, it was Ole Miss in Arkansas. That game was insane.
Yeah, it was really good.
And then you had Texas and Oklahoma, which was insane. When I turned that on, it was an 18-point lead.
It was so good,
dude. It was unreal. So Texas completely crumbled. It's like, how does your performance shift that rapidly? They were up 28-7 in the first quarter. Like, it was wild to watch, man.
Momentum is something.
Hey,
Alabama, A&M. I want to say something about that.
Yeah.
You know how there's been a large argument to get rid of kickoff and kickoff return in college football.
Some people are saying that, and it's so stupid.
That game is a very recent reason why you should not get rid of it, because when A&M returned that kickoff, the momentum shifts so much that's really what finished off Alabama, in my opinion.
Dude, I would agree. I think getting rid of the kickoff is one of the dumbest ideas ever.
Yeah.
It's
the momentum swings of a return kickoff are insane.
It's crazy how important momentum is in football, man. And you could feel it too, having the crowds back and the "Let's go Brandon" chants. I freaking love it.
Yeah, let's go Brandon.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's that. But this is what we'll end on here. That is like what's going on with the "Let's go Brandon" thing. I think the elites that are just as incompetent as any other person, any other group of people, right? I think this has them reeling because they're like, we just can't stop this, man. There's nothing we can do. Like,
who was the girl who said, and you hear them chanting, "Let's go, Brandon."
She was a reporter for a NASCAR event. Yeah, I forget what her name is.
Okay, I wonder, like, because she was told, "Don't repeat that. Make something else up."
She was like, it seemed like she was kind of caught in a situation where it's like, I don't know how to handle this.
Exactly. Yeah. And I wonder if she's like getting reprimanded because she accidentally started a huge meme, or if they said, well, that was the best you could do.
Yeah, I mean, like, because like she literally gave people a way to get that exact message across in a TV friendly way. I don't
Uh-huh.
know if you saw the this race this last weekend. It was like sponsored by Napa. I think it was yesterday. Like the kids, they had three
Yes, I
kids up
saw
there
that.
introducing it, and one of them goes, "Let's go, Brandon!"
Yeah, I
It
know.
was
It's so funny.
wonderful. But hey, man, I really appreciate you being able to come out today. It was a
Yeah.
great talking to you, great catching up with you. This won't be your last time on, I
Nope.
promise.
Nope.
But I will, dude. You have anything to say before you get going?
Um, research everything, question everything, and
Yeah,
live your
dude.
life to the fullest.
Dude, I have to agree with that 100%. Do your research, but don't do your research in a biased way. Um, And for those of you who are still sticking around, don't forget to check out awakenotwoke.shopify.com for Be the Change merch. Hashtag Be the Change. Don't forget to go over to libertyrevoltmedia.com to catch more content from me and Bucky over there. And don't forget to have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our pages. And have a wonderful rest of your weekend.